Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. We are live. It is the Monday, and it is 24 or less than 24 hours before the Springbok team for this weekend will be announced. Not on the Monday, tomorrow. We'll be back towards the normal Tuesday, and expect a lot of changes, I reckon. I think it's time for NIENABER to make a lot of changes, and I think that it's going to be a very interesting weekend because there are going to obviously have to be quite a lot of changes and stuff like that. But what those changes will be, we wait and see. And what those changes will be, it'll be interesting to see what the reaction is. And I think that on the back of this last weekend, there's quite a few positions which there are quite a lot of question marks. In many ways, more question marks and more questions than there are answers. And I think we're going to be in for quite a long week of discussion. And what's quite interesting is the press conference. It's going to be it's going to be up on the channel. It should be on the channel. It's going to be on about 2:00. The press conference from this morning, and I think it was a very interesting press conference. And I think what Deon Davids had to say had quite a lot of merit. We're going to talk about the game plan and whether it needs to change or where the real issues are with the Springboks, because there are no doubt that there are issues. That doesn't mean that there are massive issues that can't be fixed, for example. And I think that's where we want to get to. Are we in a crisis, or are there a couple of small things which can be fixed quite easily that would suddenly change the entire outlook of our campaign? Now, the funny thing is, the Springboks would still very well win the Rugby Championship. A win this weekend puts us right back in the running for the Rugby Championship, because it would put us level with Australia potentially, depending on the type of win we get. With 2 matches against Argentina. And with the New Zealand having gone down to Argentina this weekend, the Rugby Championship is very open. And I think we're actually probably sitting with one of the most exciting Rugby Championships we've ever had, because when have we ever had a Rugby Championship where after 3 rounds, we're at the halfway point, and South Africa and New Zealand sit at the bottom, Australia sit at the top, and we still do not know who's going to take the chance. As I said, a bonus point victory this weekend puts us on 9 points, which would be level with Australia, unless they get a bonus point, which puts them on 10. But if New Zealand were to beat Argentina, and I've got a feeling that they will beat Argentina this weekend, then we could all be sitting with, like we were in the second week, a Rugby Championship table with less than 2 or 3 points between the first and the second and third and fourth teams. So it's going to be a very interesting weekend with regards to the Rugby Championship and stuff like that. But a lot of people in the comments, stuff like that, we've got a lot to talk about. We will be live tomorrow for a live reaction to the squad. We'll obviously have all the various, we'll have a video up tomorrow with the squad announcement, stuff like that. And then obviously Jacques Nienaber is going to be facing the press tomorrow, which should be quite an interesting press conference for him to have to give as well. Let's see who in the comments. I see Dave Palmer's in the comments. Real Pete says, I love this channel. Watch all your rugby chats from Oz. Great content. Thank you very much. They're announcing the site tomorrow. Christian said, if it's broke, just keep trying the same thing till it ain't broke no more. Larry says, what's the minimum that Argentina had to do to win the tournament, and how could results of other teams impact theirs? Well, I think Argentina will have to win 2 of the last 3 matches, probably, to win the tournament, I'd imagine. I do see Australia losing at least 1 game to New Zealand. So I think if Argentina were to win 2 of the last 3 matches, they could win the Rugby Championship. South Africa to win the Rugby Championship, we have to go 3-3. We have to go and beat Australia. We have to go beat Argentina in Argentina. We have to come back to South Africa and beat Argentina here. So it's very difficult for us, but it's not impossible. So MC says, I'm sure we got the right coaching staff. Our players are good. We just need a 9-10 combo with some flair. They're asking if Nick White is out in ICU while he's in the training video on Forever Rugby. So, yes, he is fine. When is Rusty back? Rusty will be back in the coaching box. There on so Rusty's never gone away from a preparation point of view, for example. He's still involved right now in team selection and preparation and training, etc., etc. He just can't be there on match day. However, that will change at the end of the year tour. So he's got another 3 matches that he's going to miss. John says, Steve, you remember what I told you that what a bad ref Paul is? Not that if it's the main reason we lost, that's pretty much our fault. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is the fact that there were 2 issues. I don't think it was the strongest refereeing performance. I first of all, just don't go and watch a TAS analytics video and base it all on that, because it's always incredibly one-sided. There are a couple of calls even on the video that I'm sitting there going, I can kind of see the point, but I can kind of understand why it's not blown. But I don't think it was the strongest performance. But I don't think that there's much good in creating a 5-minute video where you go and pick apart every single potential decision that could have gone towards the box and removing absolutely any clips or not even featuring anything where the box might have been infringing and they didn't get penalized for as well. I mean, it just becomes very one-sided, a bit pointless if you ask me. But yes, so the referee this weekend obviously is not going to be Paul Williams, so hopefully we'll have less to talk about from a refereeing perspective. Christian says, like when the power suddenly goes down, I just keep switching the lights on and off until they work again. 2 hours later, it works for me. Why wouldn't it work for the box? Just Service says, Trevor, Kubas, Redach, Andre, Jasper, all capable players. We should give a try. Bitcoin saying, I'm at the point where I feel that a lose might be a better so we can make the changes necessary. Well, I think we've had that loss. I think this weekend was the wake-up call loss. Something needs to change. We're going to talk about how much needs to change as well. Double says 2 marks, 5 Nokia, 7 low, 8 Visa, 9 Henderson, 10 Willemse, 12 Andre, keep the rest. Says give the Wallabies time to learn our team and plan for it. I don't think naming our team makes that much a difference, to be perfectly honest. Contender says after watching the final whistle, we need to kick less. We need to only kick for exit play, 50-22 or place kicking. I think the concept of kick less is always for me not the right phrase to use. Maybe different and kicking in different times, but for example, both times we've lost the last 2 games which we've lost, we've actually kicked less than our opponents. So it's not about kicking less, it's about winning the kicks and the type of kicks and also the execution of the kick. An up and under can be a very good option, but it has to be executed well. That was what happened in Mombela. We were putting up contestable kicks that we could actually get into the air, contest, and win the ball back. Last 2 games, Pollard's radar's been pretty poor. I mean, like the Saturday, for example, how many kicks did you get with up and unders where they weren't contestable, and then it's just pointless. Now that's just giving the possession away. A contestable kick, however, is very different. Larry says, should Pollard and Detroit be dropped to the bench after that performance, and if so, how do you temporarily replace them? You know what time SA team tomorrow is announced? I think it's 11:30. We talk about how bad the Blitzbach were, big boys for the Cape Town tournament. Well, it depends on who's back. We were missing Ronald Brown, Sullivan Davids, a couple of big names for the not to give an excuse, but obviously if those players come back, it's a whole different prospect moving in. I mean, to miss 3 players, for example, 3 key players in a 7 side, it's almost half a side. If we keep playing like this, aren't they going to run us over? Where's Evan Ruiz? He's in Cape Town. I think he's busy getting his home gym kitted out. I saw on Instagram or Twitter or something. Do you think they need a consultant like Jake White or Ackerman? No need to remove any coach staff. Just want to add someone of that caliber in the staff. Agree. I'm all for adding somebody. I must admit. I would like to see somebody come in. I don't want it to be Jake White, though. I must admit. Jake White would never be able to be a consultant or an assistant or whatever like that. He's far too proud of a man. And he says Australia has beat us 40 times now, only 48. Kind of shocking record against Australia. Fisher's our kicking game can be on point. Williams says, especially we get us more often than not. We kick the ball better than when we run it. The more and more I look at the America replay, the more I think it was a horrible call by the officials. Jaden Flanders saying we need a consultant from overseas to look at our attack and perhaps have Swayster Brain to be our attacking coach. Steve, what are your opinion on the bloody Nick White accident, please? It is what it is. It's a penalty. I don't think it's a yellow card. It's stupid by Faf de Klerk. And yes, he does milk it. Does Nick White. Again, if you're South Africa, you're gonna absolutely hate him. If you're Australia, you're gonna have a good laugh about it. It happened. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. I don't think it was as bad as he tried to make it out to believe, but it probably was a penalty. And I think the main thing is it was stupid by Faf de Klerk because there's no need for it. But yeah, we will see Nick White again this weekend. He's a very good player. As much as a lot of people will hate him right now, and people are saying a piece of rugby soul's died and stuff like that, I think it's a bit of an overreaction. But he's a very good player, and we will see him again this weekend. So interesting to see how he does go on the back of all the controversy and the memes and everything that is going around. But I think the question is, and this is what I want to talk about, is what is broken? How much of a crisis are we in? And I liked what Dion Davis had to say, and we're gonna have the press conference up in less than an hour, so I'll be able to go and watch it. And I think I was reading an article by Brendan Nell earlier as well. So, and basically, and the reason why I think I agree with it is that basically they were saying that the Springboks do not have a game plan issue. The game plan is not the issue. Our finishing is the issue. And I think that's a very, very good, I mean, it's not groundbreaking analysis, but I think it's a very good observation because you look at the first half on Saturday, and we basically parked in their half and a large part of the points in their 22 for a very long time, but we could not finish. We could not find a way to score a try. And a game plan, for example, that gets you, I think, into 22, I think it's 13 times it was this weekend, is a game plan that for me is working. The issue is why are we not converting 13 visits or whatever into 22 into points? And that for me is why I think that the concept of having a finishing issue rather than a game plan issue is very, very valid. Now, the question is, what has to change? Because it's easy to say, well, we need to become better finishers. But what does that mean? What does that, and what sort of needs to change? Because, for example, Makazole Mapimpi is a tremendous finisher. He is. He's one of the best in the world. So why is he not scoring tries? And the issue then sort of comes, and you can sort of shift along the line, can't you? You can sit there saying, are our centers, providing go forward ball? Are we able to create gaps in defenses and then be able to exploit those gaps? And I think that's probably more where we are having issues. The fact that we are getting ourselves into very good positions, but we're not able to capitalize on them. And I think that for me is actually it's a positive in that I don't think we are far away from being able to capitalize. We're not, if we go back at 57-0 against New Zealand, and I think that this weekend was probably the worst games since that game. We are definitely not in the crisis that we were in that situation. Because we are playing in the right positions. We are getting into the right areas of the field. We're just lacking that killer instinct. We're just lacking that final couple of phases, that cutting edge, literally cutting through moment to score points. And what doesn't help, for example, is the fact that we left 6 points out there on this weekend. And that was the boot of Andre Pollard, which did let us down. You look at Mariano Bafeli, look how good while he kicked against the All Blacks, and look how much of a difference it made. So I don't think, and everybody just accused me of being an apologist and not being willing to say the right thing, stuff like that. I don't think we're far away from being a decent side, for being the side we want to be. I genuinely don't. I thought that this weekend there were several issues. I thought our defense was really poor. And I think that team selection is under scrutiny. I do think we need to change. We need to make some changes. There are a lot of players who are passengers in the side. But from a structural game plan point of view, I think that there is a lot that is working. We just need to take the next step. And the next step is converting them into points. The next step is getting into the 22, finding a penalty, taking the 3. The next step is getting into 22, having attacking scrum, for example, and being able to carve out a try. And whether that's, a pre-planned move, whether it's people who can get over the advantage line, whether it's more creativity needed, we need an attacking spark. We need to find ways to attack to finish, not just attack to find. We need to find ways to score tries at the end of the day, or to win penalties and score points, because New Zealand scored more tries than Argentina, but Argentina beat them. So, don't disregard the value of 3 points. If we had taken 3 points, 13 visits into the 22, if we find 7 penalties or 6 penalties, for example, and we kick every single penalty, that's 18 points. 18 points is very often enough to win a test match, providing that you don't concede, obviously, as many points. So it's not necessarily just about scoring lots and lots of tries. It's being able to get yourselves into those positions, find an advantage, find a penalty, take the points, keep the scoreboard ticking. And it doesn't help when we left 6 points out there. You lose 25 points to 17, which could win 25 points to 3. But I do think that we are not using our creative players effectively enough within the squad. And I think if we're looking at players, and I think it's also not, it's two things. It's two things, isn't it? This weekend that we had an issue. First of all, our back line, it was not much creativity. We weren't being able to get over the advantage line. I don't think Dealende was effective as he was. But also, I think that this weekend we really struggled with runners getting us over the game line. And Dwayne Vermeulen, unfortunately, whilst I thought he did everything well. I actually didn't think he played that badly, to be honest. He's no longer got that ball carrying ability where he's going to get over the advantage line every single time, which is why everybody's calling for Evan Lewis. However, Jasper Wiese has that ability. He's got the ability to get over the game line. Jasper Wiese from 5 meters out is a very hard man to stop, and we missed that. Pieter-Steph du Toit is a monster of a human, but he's not effective at the moment. He's not getting over the advantage line. He's not the Pieter-Steph du Toit that he was 3 years ago. And I don't think it's fair to sit there saying, well, he's past it, because, he's not like Van Steen and 37 years old. He's 30 years old. He's just turned 30 years old, but he's not in form. And I think that's where we are lacking, is we are lacking people who can get over the advantage line consistently. Malcolm Marx getting over the advantage line. Stephen Kitzel got over the advantage line a couple of times. Quicker Smith gets us over the advantage line. But we're not getting over the advantage line enough. We don't have players who can break through gaps. Dealende, for example, hasn't been as effective as getting over the advantage line, because if you have two runs, for example, of players who find 5 or 6 meters and you recycle ball quickly, that's when gaps start opening up. That's when you start finding opportunities to sort of exploit defenses. But we're not getting that consistently good, positive ball carrying ability. And I think we need to have changes at hooker. I think Joseph Dweber's now had 2 starts where he's looked a little bit out of his depth. This weekend, he actually looked a lot better when he came back after his injury. When he came back on, his line work was actually fine. But the frustrating thing for me is the fact that we've got Joseph Dweber, who was characterized as an aggressive ball carrier at the Cheetahs. He scored lots of tries, for example. He was incredible. He was like a Bongi Manambi type of player, but with ball in hand, in that he was very aggressive and that he got over the advantage line. He was very effective. He didn't carry the ball once, so that needs to change. If he's going to be good in a Bok jersey, and I will put myself out there, I still think he will be test match quality. I think he is test match quality. I think he's a player who's playing with very little confidence, very little game plan, very little game time rather, and he's got a massive set piece issue, so he needs to go sort that out. So do I think he should be playing for the Boks right now? Probably not, based on the last 2 games. But I think he goes back to the Stormers. I think that he works on that. I think he goes and plays 60, 70 minutes for the Stormers every week, where he's throwing in 10 to 15 lineouts, sort a set piece out, get some ball in hand, get some confidence, and then I think he'll be ready to make the step up. I genuinely do. But it's not working right now, therefore we need to change it. So I do think we need to change it hooker. Which I think Malcolm Marx start this weekend, and by virtue of Malcolm Marx starting, interesting to see if Stephen Kitzel does start. I want to see Trevor Nyakane back in the 23. I think we've missed him, and I think we need to change the loose trio. And I think that Khaleesi will keep his jersey, and so he should. I thought that he actually played pretty well in South Africa, but he looked like someone who was trying to get us over the advanced line. He was trying to spark something with some of his defensive efforts. But Pieter-Steph du Toit was largely ineffective and has been for most of the season. And I think Dwayne Vermeulen, whilst he didn't play badly, didn't bring what we needed him to bring. So change at 7-8 probably needed. I think we'll see Jasper Wiese come back anyway, but we also have to be careful about his game time, because Jasper Wiese has played, I think, more rugby in the squad than anybody else has from a playing minutes perspective. And you don't want to burn these players out and then be sitting there with them a couple of months before the World Cup going, sure, but they played far too much. They've got to rest. We don't have time for them to rest. We need them to be informed. So we do have to manage players as well. I think that's an interesting part that people don't take into account, the fact that we have to manage players and have to manage their game plan. I do think I think Faf de Klerk struggled a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a swap there. And Pollard has to go for this weekend. He has to. And that's not to say Pollard is finished, but you cannot play like he did this weekend and be rewarded with another start. He was shocking. I can't actually think of anything he did well, to be honest, because his up and unders, his tactical kicking game was really poor. His goal kicking was dreadful. His defense was really poor. I mean, the fact he got that defensive effort against Korobeti was disastrous. So on that, give somebody else a go. Now, the problem is that chances are they go to David Willemse before they go to Alton Yankees. And I can understand from a form point of view because David Willemse is playing very well. I worry about Willemse at 10. I still worry about Willemse at 10. I've got no issue with him slotting into 10 during the game if he has to. But Willemse at 10 almost ruined his career. A year ago, Willemse was on the verge of being potentially dropped from the box. He was nowhere for the Stormers. And the best thing that ever happened to his career was the Stormers went and bought Ronnie Liebach. Best thing that happened to Damien Willemse's career. And he played at 12 and 15 throughout the entire URC, and he was phenomenal. And he's been really good in that fullback jersey. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him at 10, but I don't want to see him at 10. I think that 10 does not play to his best attributes. I personally would like to see a change at 12. And for me, it's a flick of a coin. You can give Andre Esterhuizen a run out of 12 and go for a bruising, battering Damien Delinde like replacement. Somebody's going to get over the advantage line and brings a lot of physicality. Or you can go Damien Willemse at 12. And Willemse at 12 is a very different type of player because he brings a better distribution game. And he brings defensively, he's perfectly sound. So I think that's quite exciting. But he's a very different player with ball in hand because he likes to change this point of contact. Just before contact, just step inside, step outside. So he'll often get over the advantage line, but it's more of an intelligent way of doing it as opposed to just a brute force thing. And again, you also kick you at 12. So I personally, if we're gonna swap Willemse, I'd love to see him at 12. I don't want to see him at 10 because I also worry about the pressure it puts on his goal kicking. So it wouldn't surprise me if we go with Willemse at 10, but I don't want to see it. I think that and everybody will have a meltdown, but you've got to be giving it a run out to Alton at 10. Yes, it might have been 4 or 5 times he touched the ball, but we talk about the fact that we're not getting over the advantage line. We talk about the fact that we are just not managing to get on the front foot. That's what he does. It's the one thing you cannot fault him for. That's what he does. He puts players on the front foot. He puts players into gaps. He passes incredibly flat. And he puts players into gaps. He puts players into space. So again, I'd be very surprised if we see it. I reckon we'll probably see him against Argentina, but I would love to see Alton at 10, Willemse at 12, because I think that could be a very interesting combination. Scrum half, you can go with Hendrickse. I've got no issue. I think we probably will go back to Hendrickse after past performance. But we need someone who can put us on the front foot because Pollard is very stationary. I mean, look, for example, there was a time where we had like a 3-man overlap and he looked up and took contact. And that's the biggest thing. Pollard's first instinct is contact and then maybe pass. And even if he passes, often stationary, and he'll give a long looping pass to players who are in their position. Alton Yankees takes the ball to the line and he puts players on the front foot. And I think that's something we're missing. I genuinely do. And I worry that Damien Willemse, who is not a bad goal kicker, but he's not a great goal kicker. He's not a test match place kicker. He's really not. And someone who's playing with so much confidence suddenly starts goal kicking badly. We're in trouble. We are in trouble. I think. And those are really the only options at 10. And 13 should be unless there's any injury issues, will be that's fine. You have to stick up a Mapimpi at 11 because there aren't any other options at 11 really. But then 14 continues to be an issue. Warwick Haaland did not do himself a lot of favors. Again, playing out of position. So, there is a little bit of a justification, but I think that he's better at fullback. And I don't think there's a massive difference between 14 and 15. He said himself, there's not a massive difference between 14 and 15. But we missed Billy this weekend, so I think we'll see him back this coming weekend, the 23. So the question is, what do you do at 14? Jesse Creel is fit and is back. Do you play Jesse Creel at 14? Or do we say to Caden Moody, you know what, we backed you. We know that you can play at this level. That's why we picked you. Go and play. I think we will see Caden Moody in the 23 either this weekend or the next game. And then the bench obviously will depend on what's happening. But Frank Moss and Quacker Smith, I think, will probably stay on the bench. If not, actually, I both think could start, to be honest. I think Quacker Smith has been one of our best players this season, and Frank Moss has looked very good when he's come off the bench. Started a bit slow, but now he's looking good. I worry about Franstein. I must admit, I didn't like what I saw from him. He made a couple of very basic errors. He looks, I mean, he's always been a big chap in the last couple of years, but he just looks very heavy and very one-dimensional at the moment. And I know he's got a big boot, and I know he's a very good goal kicker, for example, when he brings that sort of 60-meter penalty option. But I think that France stay this weekend. So for me this weekend, I looked at Dwayne Vermeulen and I thought there's still a player there. He can still play at this level. He does need more match fitness. Are we going to be? Is he going to be our starting 8th man? No, not sure. But he should. But he needs to be in the squad because I think he brings a lot of experience. I looked at France staying this weekend, and I saw a player that I think is coming to the end. I think he's done, to be honest. So, yeah, and again, it's difficult because it was his first game, but I do worry about Farstein because he wasn't phenomenal in the Currie Cup either. So those two players are big question marks from an age point of view. When whether they're going to be able to make another year, whether they still can play at this level, those are big questions we have to ask. But yeah, I haven't gone through telling in the comments. There's a lot of them coming through, so thank you very much. Please, as I said, please do smash like on the video. Over 200 people watching, so it's going to be an interesting week ahead of rugby chat. Elias says time to demote NIENABER to assistant coach and bring in a real coach. So if you're replacing NIENABER, who you're replacing him with? Because you're then also replacing Rusty. Just remember that. Chris says put alternate 10 and Pollard 12. Yeah, we've seen it before and we've seen it work as well. Larry says, just goes to show how big of a problem we have at fly half. This can cost us a lot if at the World Cup of injuries, etc. happen. Christian says, let's go 5-3 again and put Delender in the bench. Could have massive impact later in the game. Ultimate Sharpshooter says, this sounds a lot like the Stormers 2020 before Liebach took the right 10 to unlock the Stormers backline. I do think we have a problem at 10, 100%. Josh says, we low-key play better with Williams at 12 if we want to attack. Contenders selection is going 9 Reinach, 10 Yankees, 12 Williams, 13 11 Mapimpi, 14 Movie, 15 Galant, Hendricks, Stain, Leroux. You can see 10 Leroux, 12. You know, contender, I was so with you until you start putting Leroux at 10. You will never see Leroux at 10. You would see Williams at 15. I mean, Williams at 10 and Leroux at 15. We do have to have Leroux back this weekend, by the way. We really missed him because we need a playmaker on the field. And Williams is a playmaker, but not the same sort of playmaker that a Leroux is than Alton Yankees is, for example. It's at this stage, why don't we just see what Leroux can do starting at 10? He's not going to tackle West Pollard and will mobilize the backline better. Jay says, France had a shocker, but Dwayne had 1-2 first game. Yeah, that's right. I think there are big question marks over the both of them. And I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with them. But decisions need to be made sooner rather than later, isn't it? I think that we're very much using the Rugby Championship to sort of see where we are. I think what will be interesting is the end of year tour. So I think that'll be a pretty big reflection as to who we're backing to play next year and who we're not. So Elias says Rusty can be the head coach. Want to back Moody this week at 14. Agreed. Sorry, that argument does not hold water, Stephen. Why are we replacing Rassi and NIENABER was demoted? Because Rassi Erasmus is still in charge of the team. That's why. It's a title change, but logistically, Rassi Erasmus is still in charge of the team. Rassi Erasmus is still the head of the team. He has even said so. He has said that the difference comes in from a workload point during the week that Jacques NIENABER can take on more operational stuff with the box, whether that's meeting, whether that's, for example, press opportunities. We don't exactly know what the operational things that he's taken more responsibility with, but Rassi Erasmus still heads up this side. That is why last year during the British and Irish Lions, he was there at the stadium. That is why we saw him up until he was banned at the stadium every single match day, calling the shots. He is still heads up this team. He still said himself that he is responsible for the results. So whilst he might not be the head coach in inverted commas, he is still the head of the team. So if you're demoting NIENABER, then you're putting somebody else as head coach, and Rassi Erasmus would still then be heading it up, or else you're getting rid of Rassi Erasmus, who is effectively the head of the game. So and we've had this conversation quite a lot. Rassie Erasmus is still calling the shots. So if you want the coaching staff out, you want Rassie Erasmus out. And Rassie Erasmus, as director of rugby, has got a couple of different responsibilities, but he's doing a lot of appointing, for example. The fact that, in theory, he was in charge of getting the women's team going. What did he do? He went and found a high-performance director of women's rugby who is then running the entire rugby. And then she will have a meeting once a month with Rassie Erasmus and say, this is what we're doing as the woman. And Rassie can be like, cool, lacquer. But I can promise you right now, fast forward a year, Rassie Erasmus will be on a plane to France. He'll be in the coaching box every single match during the World Cup. He is still the top man. That is how the structures work. You know, he was training, literally running around with them in Mbombela. I haven't had confirmation whether he did travel to Australia, but he is still very much the man at the top, and calling all the shots. So yeah, I think it will become a lot more apparent when he does go to the end of the tour, and I reckon we'll see him back in the coaching box, and then it becomes a lot easier to know for sure that he is still there. And whether the setup is the right or wrong setup, you know, only time will tell. It's difficult to say whether it is or whether it isn't. But I think that Rassie Erasmus is a meticulous planner, and I think that's why they went with the director rugby role, because he's a planner. He doesn't necessarily execute those plans, for example, all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that if this is the plan for the women's game, he has to be the one doing it all. But he can. But I think from a structural point of view, he'll be laying out plans and various systems across SA Rugby that will then feed, and then he can sit there saying, right, fun and clear, cool, this is what the plan is for SA under-20s. Now you go and do that. You know, you go to, you know, the various under 18 coaches say, this is your plan. You go to the URC coaches saying, this is what we need from you guys. But as director of SA Rugby, his responsibilities is SA Rugby from a national rugby point of view, which means that it's about the sevens, it's about the under-20s, it's about the women, it's about the Springboks, it's about those sort of four, really. Then to a lesser extent, the under-18 stuff like that. But for example, you've got the seven structure, which is so good. He doesn't have to do much with that. He can continuously let that go. So yeah, but I also think, you know, we look at this weekend, for example, and you know that you can look after as coaches. I think the coaches can take the blame for team selection, for example. So players who are playing badly and still being played, you can put that on the coaches. The game plan you can put on coaches, whether it's working, whether it's not. But also, I think this team, I think very much the blame for the Saturday performance lies 50-50, really, between the Springboks, the players and the management, because there were a lot of errors. There were a lot of missed tackles the last two games. There were a lot of knockouts. There were lots of really poor playing performances as well. Now, as a coach, you can do as much as you can. You can have the game plan. You can have the ideas. You select a team. But if those players let you down and don't play to their ability, you actually don't have as much control about that. The question is, do you now reward those players who play badly with another start, or do you make changes? So that's what we'll see tomorrow. And I think that right now the coaching staff are in a bit of a corner, and they're going to have to make changes, I think, because if not, there's very little justification for what they're doing. And tomorrow I'm predicting at least 3 changes in the pack, and I'm predicting at least 3 changes in the back line. That's my call for tomorrow. So I reckon there'll be at least 6 changes in tomorrow's lineup. One of them will be in the front row, I reckon, and I think that at least one in the front row, and I think at least 1, if not 2, in the loose trio. I think we will see a change in the halfback combination, and I think we will see a change in the back 3. I'll be very surprised if we don't see a change in the centers as well. So I think we are going to see a lot of changes tomorrow. And whether the changes will bring difference, we wait and see. But I think that's what the coaches have to do. You can't keep losing, keep choosing the same players, and then put your hands up and say it's not our fault. So I think we will see change tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll be able to talk about this live. In fact, fewer than less than 24 hours. But we've got to be brave now. We've got to be brave, and this is the thing, because we can talk about team selection, but how many of our usual reliable, Mr. Reliable 7 to 8 out of 10 performers every single week let us down this weekend? Peter Steph-Toy let us down this weekend. Andre Pollard let us down this weekend. Damien Lindy let us down this weekend. Those are three. Faf de Klerk let us down this weekend. So those are very important positions across the 15 of players who are all World Cup winners or start in the World Cup final, have all been incredibly important players for the Boks, all players with 40 to 50 caps that didn't pitch up. Players that we know are good enough, but not in the right form. The question is, do those players keep their position, or are we brave enough to say to Pollard, you had an absolute stinker, unfortunately. You're being dropped and somebody else is going to have a go this weekend. And you need to play your way back into that jersey. And sometimes it has to happen. And sometimes a player getting dropped can be the best thing that's ever happened to them. But you've got to make big decisions. You've got to be brave enough to make those big decisions. And hopefully those decisions pay dividends. And what we need to also be prepared to do is, if the Springbok coaching staff make changes in the lineup tomorrow that they announce, and we go this weekend and we put in a much bigger performance and we go and win and stuff like that, we've got to be ready to say, there we go. We've got to be willing to say, that's what we wanted to see. You did it, and credit to the coaches. So let's hope that we see changes tomorrow. And then let's hope that we see changes this weekend. And because a win this weekend, we're suddenly sitting with two wins in the championship, one against New Zealand, one against Australia, and 2 losses, which is 50% win rate. Not ideal, but we've also would have broken the duck of winning a game in Australia for the first time since 2013, which we never really have to play 2 games. So, if we win this weekend, I think we're in a position to finish strongly, because if you go and beat Argentina in Argentina, which isn't easy, you suddenly put yourself in a position to potentially win the Rugby Championship. So if you go and win the next 3 games, you can sit there saying, right, well, we had a bit of a crisis. We had a really poor game. We made some changes, and things started to change. Against Argentina, for example, we know that we're going to see new players. We know that we're going to see Evan Lewis against Argentina. We know that we're probably going to see Andre Esterhuizen against Argentina. We know that we will probably see Albert Lowe against Argentina. We'll probably see Samuel Nokia. We will see these players against Argentina. We know this. They've said as much, not so much those players, but they've said that we will see a different looking team against Argentina. So we know there will be changes. The question is, are these players going to rise to the occasion and take the opportunities, or are they going to and it can happen, are they going to play themselves out of the squad? Are there going to be certain players who could demonstrate that they're not ready for this level? One could argue that Joseph Dweba is currently sitting in that little bit of an awkward situation where they're probably sitting there going, are you ready for international rugby? Now, hopefully he'll get an opportunity against Argentina again. And you have to sit there saying, right, chap, here's another match. You could probably get an opportunity this weekend as well. But you can sit in there for Joseph Dweba saying you've got maybe 2 more matches left in this Rugby Championship. You have to prove you belong in this jersey. If you don't, you're not coming on the end of your tour. We're going to go to Johan Kovalon, and we're going to give him 2 or 3 matches. And if he outperforms you, we're going to take him to the World Cup. So we're in a very interesting position where there are certain people who have to prove that they're ready for this level. They have to prove that they're good enough. And if not, we make big decisions come the end of the tour. I don't think that too many players can be brought in right now for next year. I do think Hooker is a problem position, and I think Flyhouse is a problem position. I don't think 14 is a problem position, because in theory we could be getting up to 3 players back in that position. Chase Colby's back. When Kurt Lawrence is back, there are other options at 14. So, Kurs Radok, for example, hopefully they kept saying that he might be ready for Australia. We might see him this weekend. So Bongi Manambi will be back for the end of year tour, hopefully. So we've got a lot of players who will come back. And they are in the problem positions. You know, we've got an issue at hooker. Bongi Ivanami solves that like that. We've got an issue at 14. Colby and Orange solves it like that. You know, we've got an issue at 15. Do we? Is there? I don't know. I don't think we have an issue. We've got an issue at 10 that comes down to form or whether you're going to make a big decision and bring in another fly half. So I think that as I said, I think the positions where there are issues, you know, issues at 8, we've got Jasmine Visi, we've got Evan Lewis, we've got Quacker Smith, we've got Grant Mullen, we've got the players. We just need to decide who is going to play, and then they need to show why they need to play. Those 4 players all need to go out every single week and prove that they should be playing in the next game. Same at 7 with Peter Steph the Toy. If he's not going to play well enough, then give Ulrich Lowe an opportunity. And if Ulrich Lowe takes a lot of shoot with both hands, you're going to sit there saying, right, Peter Steph the Toy, Ulrich Lowe is going to play until you start, until you prove us otherwise. And that's what we need. We need competition, because we speak about our depth, and we do have very good depth, but I think there are a lot of players who are not playing at the best of their ability. And that's why I think we're really struggling, because a lot of players who have previously been so reliable are not playing particularly well. And that's what's really, really hurting us at the moment. But hopefully we will see some changes tomorrow. And if not, then we 100%. We can get onto the coaching staff and we can really have a go at them. If they make changes, then we wait and see if they're going to work. And if they work, we have to be good enough to hold our hands up and say, you know what, fair, you guys made the changes and it worked. And if they don't work, then we can start panicking a little bit. Because if you go and make 8 or 9 changes, for example, and those 8 or 9 players don't pick up their game, then we're sitting going, maybe our depth isn't as good. You know, maybe we're now sitting with a 43-man squad, and maybe we actually have doubts about whether this 43-man squad is good enough. So I think we're going to get a lot of answers in the next 3 weeks. By the end of September, I think we'll have a lot of answers. I do think we'll have a lot of answers. After the Rugby Championship, there'll be 6 matches. We'll be 9 matches in for the season. We'll be ahead of an end-of-year tour, which has got a lot of matches on it. 7 matches, hopefully 6 confirmed. Hopefully a 7th coming in as well. And we'll know where a lot of players are, because hopefully at least every single player would have played at least 2, maybe 3 matches. So let's hope that we'll see that. We will be live tomorrow. I'm going to try and find where's my schedule. Well, here we go. So the team announcement tomorrow is the press conference starts at 11 the time, which means the team announcement could be any time from 10. Sometimes it comes out an hour before, sometimes it comes out half an hour before. Whatever happens, we will be live for a reaction tomorrow. We will have a video out with the team and stuff like that. So come and join us tomorrow. Then there'll be more press conferences on Wednesday, which will be out on Wednesday and Thursday. Then there'll be the captain's press conference on Friday. And then we are into game time this weekend. The kickoff is at 11:35, which is a little bit more friendly. And we'll also have content from the Wallabies up all week. So plenty of content to look forward to. Please, we will be releasing a 5 things we learned video tomorrow, hopefully. So we'll also have some of that sort of content coming in along with the live shows. And I'm hoping that we will be back to our fan forum on Thursday evening as well. Please do smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're still trying to chase that 18,000 subscriber mark. So of the 200 plus people who are watching, let's try and get up to 18,000 before this weekend. Please do keep well, and I'll chat to you guys all soon.